Tonight on College Press Box, the Longhorns took the field at DKR for the first time with a new head coach, Charlie Strong.
Baseball faced a tough weekend against TCU, but softball gets a shutout. All of this and more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of College Press Box. I'm Alex Wilkins and co-hosting with me tonight is Lauren Barish. How are you doing tonight, Lauren?
I'm good. Glad to be here co-hosting with you tonight.
Well, it's that wonderful time of spring when we get to talk football. The Texas football team played its annual orange-white scrimmage on Saturday. With an almost completely new coaching staff and mentality, all eyes were on the field to see where this team's at. Lauren, did you get a chance to catch the game?
Yeah, I did. It was really nice to see Longhorn fans come out, support the team, and see what's going to happen with the new changes that have been made in the program recently.
Absolutely. I think people were definitely interested to see what Charlie Strong has done. In case you didn't get to watch the game, let's head on out to DKR for the highlights. With David Ash out, we have Tyrone Swoops and Miles Onyeabule gearing up to compete for that starting quarterback spot. First quarter, 2nd and 21 at the Texas 34. Onyeabule completes a 30-yard pass to Montrell Meander down to the Texas 4. It'll be 1st and goal for the Horns. 3rd and goal at the Texas 1. Onyeabule scrambles it in for the 1-yard score. Horns team will go up 7-0. So first quarter, 2nd and 10 at the Horns 24. Onyeabule to throw it, but gets picked off by Mikel Thompson, who returns it all the way for 36 yards for the pick 6. Texas team knots it up at 7. Second quarter, 3rd and 1 at the Horns 11. Malcolm Brown rushes up the middle for an 11-yard score. Texas team goes up 17-7 with about a minute left in the half. Second quarter, 3rd and 28 at the Horns 42. Swoops scrambles out of the pocket and throws up a prayer caught by DeJay Johnson. Texas team takes a 24-7 lead into halftime. A little bit happy about that. Then Longhorns legend Vince Young actually was there. We'll see him right here. Hopefully the Horns can conjure up some of his magic in the second half. Going into third quarter, 3rd and 5 at the Horns 6. Swoops hits Malcolm Brown on the screen and he takes it all the way 6 yards for the score. Texas team goes up 31-7. It was a great game for Malcolm Brown, one of the best offensive players of the game. Fourth quarter, 1st and 10 at the Horns 44. Tyrone Swoops hits Jackson Shipley for a 44-yard touchdown strike. The Texas team goes up 38-7 and would go on to win 38-14 in Charlie Strong's inaugural spring game.
College Press Box's Jeff Barker was at the game on Saturday with more.
Saturday afternoon's annual orange and white scrimmage marked the first time that fans got to see the Texas football team in action since Charlie Strong took over as head coach in January.
I'm very pleased about the spring game, and it was really exciting just to see our fans come out in the numbers they came out in.
Although he was pleased with the way the game went, Strong made it clear that the team still has a lot to work on.
I wish I had 15 more days, but I don't have them. So now we just got to get our guys through the summer and then get them to fall camp. And when we get to fall camp, we just need to go to work.
Unfortunately for the Longhorns, one of the biggest improvements they need to make lies at the most important spot on the roster.
And the quarterback position is going to be the key position because you got to manage the offense, you got to run the offense.
With all the uncertainty that continues to surround the quarterback position for Texas right now, sophomore Tyrone Swoops struggled early on but was eventually able to finish the game with 229 passing yards and 3 touchdowns.
Tyrone has done a great job of stepping up and being more consistent as a quarterback. And I'm excited for him to come out and play and get into his rhythm, because once he gets into a rhythm, it calms down out there. He's a great QB.
From finding their next great quarterback to forming a great team, players and coaches continue to work towards developing a new identity.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's just giving it the extra effort that they need to give to get better, and just everybody's just buying in, really.
Well, if they trust and believe in the system, then we're always going to have a chance.
Jeff Barker, College Press Box.
And tonight we have Jeff Barker here with us
Saturday
in the studio to tell us a little more about this weekend's orange and white game. Thanks for being here with us, Jeff, tonight. How are you doing?
Doing great, Lauren. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you talked about it a little bit in your report, but can you fill us in on the Longhorns quarterback situation? How did all of the potential QBs look on Saturday, in your opinion?
Well, so really, I mean, you guys know the only two potential QBs, Tyrone Swoops, the sophomore, was the only healthy scholarship QB on the roster, and then Miles Onyebule. Miles, he was all right. Struggled a little bit, through 2 interceptions, but Tyrone actually played pretty well after struggling early on. Came back and channeled his inner Case McCoy at the end of the first half, hitting DeJay Johnson on that Hail Mary. But honestly, it's looking like Max Wittick, he was actually at the game on his 3rd visit to Texas, so it's looking like he might transfer here. So Texas will have, Ash back for summer camp. Maybe they'll have Wittick if he decides to transfer, and then they'll have Swoops and Gerard Hurd. So don't be surprised if Gerard Hurd gets a shot at starting too, especially if Wittick doesn't come.
All right, well, outside of that quarterback position, were there any players in particular that stood out to you?
Well, I mean, if I had to give an MVP for this one, I'd have to go Malcolm Brown, the offensive Malcolm Brown, the senior running back. I mean, he was the best player on the field at all times, rushed for 82 yards, and got a touchdown on the ground as well. Also caught one on that screen pass that you guys saw in the highlights. And I'd say offensively, I also have to go with former quarterback turned running back Jalen Overstreet, rushed for over 50 yards. He started out with the second team, and they actually bumped him up in the second half to run with the first string guys. And I'd say Jackson Shipley, too. Good to see him come out only 1 touchdown last year. I mean, he's a great weapon for Texas if they can get somebody to throw him the ball. Defensively, I'd have to go with the entire D-line. I mean, on the second team, Caleb Blewett played well, and then the first team, obviously, the other Malcolm Brown and Tank Johnson. And some other guys, too. Michael Thompson played well. DeMarco Cobbs at linebacker, too.
All right, one last thing before we let you go, Jeff. It's been about 3 months now since Coach Strong took over, and Saturday's game was the first chance Longhorn fans got to see the team in a live game-like setting. Does it seem like the staff is doing a good job of getting the players to be on board with the new Texas football system?
Yeah, definitely. Listening to Coach Strong in the press conference after the game, it really does seem like a lot of the guys are buying in. Talked to some of the players after the game, Malcolm Brown, Quandre Diggs, the other Malcolm Brown offense and defense. Talked to Dominic Espinoza, the center. So a lot of the senior leaders really saying they are getting a lot of these guys to buy into the new system. It seems like they all really do like Charlie and really looking forward to playing with him. And Charlie noted as well that, when you have a quick turnover with a coaching staff like that, bringing in an entire new staff that he brought in, I think only left 2 of the old coaches on the roster. So, I mean, with that, it just gets really tough getting these guys to all buy in. There's always going to be some of those guys that don't. And you really mentioned that, it's really important to get, the 90% that are buying in to run the team instead of the 10% that are kind of cancers on the team that aren't necessarily buying in.
Right. Well, thanks, Jeff. We'll have him back later in the show to talk a little more football.
After the break, we take you from DKR to the Diamond as we chat baseball with analyst Reese Miller, who will tell you all you need to know about Longhorn baseball.
Plus, men and women's tennis get ready for the Big 12 Tennis Championships, coming up on College Press Box.
Welcome back to College Press Box. Texas baseball season is in full swing, and swings did not seem to be an issue for sophomore Ben Johnson and freshman Trace Barrera as the Horns played UT Arlington this past Tuesday. Texas took the lead in the 3rd inning when Johnson hit a 2-run homer to left field. Shortly after, CJ Hinojosa hit a 2-out double, which allowed Barrera to score, putting the Horns up 3-1 at the bottom of the 3rd. And 3 seemed to be the magic number for Texas that night as another RBI from Johnson, a bases-loaded walk, and a sacrifice fly from Colin Shaw brought in 3 more runs for Texas. The Horns went on to score another run in the 6th and then 3 more in the 8th inning when Barrera cleared the field with a bases-loaded triple. Johnson and Barrera ended the night with a combined 7 RBIs, and the Texas bullpen pulled off 8 innings of 1-run ball, leading the Horns to a 10-2 victory at the Dish.
Well, Texas didn't have quite the same success in the conference series against TCU, starting with Thursday's game. Starting pitcher Parker French wouldn't allow any hits for the first 4 innings, but in the 5th inning, the Horned Frogs put up 3 runs. TCU pitcher Brandon Finnegan showed everybody why he's the 2nd best pitcher in the nation, and Texas was shut out for the first time since the season opener against Cal. Final score was 0-3. Then on Friday, things didn't look much better for Texas. Pitcher Dylan Peters looked solid, but the Horned Frogs scored a run in the first inning and hit a run-scoring triple in the 7th. Despite 2 hits from C.J. Hinojosa and hits from Ben Johnson and Casey Clemens, Texas would leave 9 runners stranded on base and would again be shut out. Looking to leave the series with at least 1 win, the Horns played TCU in the series finale Saturday, but no such luck. Texas started out with the lead when Colin Shaw's hit brought Brooks Marlowe home in the first inning, avoiding a 3rd shutout. Nathan Thornhill matched his season-high 6 strikeouts and wouldn't allow any runs the first 6 innings, but in the 7th, TCU would run 2 in and take the lead. Texas would out-hit TCU 9-7, but again was unable to capitalize, leaving 8 runners on base. TCU would win the series finale 3-1, snapping Texas's 3-conference series win streak. Joining us in the studio, we have baseball analyst Reese Miller. How are you doing, Reese?
Doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me as always.
Absolutely. So after the sweep from TCU, what does this do to the possibilities of Texas winning the Big 12?
Well, it definitely hampers those possibilities. Texas came into last Thursday's game and series against TCU, ranked number 4 in the nation by Baseball America, ranked atop of the Big 12 standings. Now they find themselves 2 games back of Big 12 series leading Oklahoma State. They'll come in to play the dish this weekend in a 3-game set. Texas really needs to take at least 2 out of 3, with Big 12 play winding down. Their opportunities are running out for this Texas team, although the Big 12 title is still in their sight, but they need to take 2 out of 3 at least. Hopefully a sweep for the Texas Longhorns this weekend against a tough Oklahoma State team that will present Texas a lot of trouble, I think.
All right, Reese, and what specifically needs to change throughout the rest of Big 12 play for a lineup that scored 1 run in the last 3 games?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it. 1 run in 27 innings is not going to get it done, especially against a tough TCU team. Preseason ranked 15, top 15 in the country. They really showed why they were ranked that way in this past weekend. I don't think it was so much as the Horns struggling as much as TCU being absolutely dominant. Finnegan there's a reason he's projected to be a first-round Major League Baseball pick. They didn't execute against Morrison. I think the troubling thing for this Texas team is that we've seen all season them be able to come back and rebound and execute in the late innings, and when they lose a game, they'll come right back, and Augie's really got this team mentally focused. And this weekend, we really didn't see that as much, especially in the late innings. Andy McGuire getting a chance at DH, grounding into a double play to end Saturday's game, and you mentioned it, 8 runners left on base total Saturday's game alone. So really, I think the troubling thing for Texas is the inability to score runs and string those hits together. Granted, it was against a tough pitching staff in TCU and against one of the best closers in the country in Riley Farrell. But nevertheless, this is a team with all the talented hitters in this lineup that should be putting together more than 1 run in 3 games.
All right, Reese, so fill us in. What's the latest update with the freshmen in the Texas starting lineup?
Well, the freshmen are definitely a big part of Texas' success up to this point. Right now, 3rd in the Big 12. I think you look at some guys that have struggled recently. Casey Clemens is starting to in the mid-240s range. Zane Gerwitz has actually put together some nice defense, especially at third base, and made an electric play in Friday night's game against TCU. He started to put it together offensively as well. Andy McGuire had a chance to put himself back in the lineup this past weekend. Didn't execute at all, still hitting way under the Mendoza line. I think the most important hitter the rest of this way going forward as far as the freshman class go is catcher Trace Barrera. He's done a nice job behind the plate, controlling that pitching staff, and all of a sudden after hitting under the Mendoza line, under 200 for a long stretch at the beginning of the season, he's hitting over 350 in the last month. Expect him to continue to maintain his hot streak through the rest of the season, and what Texas hopes is a Big 12 title run.
Well, I could not agree more. Thank you so much for coming to the studio tonight and talking with us, Reese. Hopefully next time we see you, the baseball team will have some better luck.
All right, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Texas men's tennis can now say they are Big 12 regular season champs, well, tied at least. The Horns played Texas Tech on Saturday in Lubbock. Doubles teams did not compete, but the Horns dominated the singles matches. Junior Soren Hesse-Olesen got a straight set win over Felipe Soares, ending the Big 12 season undefeated. For the next 3 matches, Texas would continue that success. Junior Lloyd Glasspool, junior Adrian Berkowitz, and freshman George Goldhoff all had straight set wins and put the Horns up 4-0. Sophomore Nick Nauman would also cap off a perfect Big 12 season with a win, giving the Horns a 5-0 lead. Junior Clement Holmes would drop a close 3rd set tiebreaker, but that wouldn't be enough for the Red Raiders. Texas won 5-1 and earned its first Big 12 regular season title since 2010, sharing the top spot with Baylor and Oklahoma. Well, the 6 conference teams will meet in Fort Worth April 24th through the 27th for the Big 12 Tennis Championships. Texas got the number 2 seed and will take on either Oklahoma or the 6th-seeded TCU. The Longhorns won the Big 12 championship title last year, but Lauren, do you think they can do it again this year?
I think that Texas has a pretty good shot at winning the championship again this year. The stars of their team have remained consistent throughout the season, and I really do think that they will continue to perform in this tournament. They won the Big 12 title, even though they had stiff competition. They faced 3 top 7 teams. They won 11 of their last 13 matches, and Junior Sorenhas Olesen is completely leading this team. He went undefeated in Big 12 play this season, and he leads the team with 12 wins over nationally ranked opponents this season. So I think they have a very good shot if they remain consistent to what they've been doing all season. I can't imagine that, they'll be taken down. How do you think it's going to go for them, Alex?
Well, I definitely agree that they have the right keys to win it. But the Big 12 has some great teams, and they'll definitely be facing some tough competition. So we'll see how they do.
Absolutely. As the men's tennis team hopes to beat out all of its Big 12 rivals, the softball team looked to take down its biggest Big 12 rival when they took on Oklahoma this past weekend. On Friday, senior Taylor Tom led the Horns by getting on base on all 4 at-bats and scoring 3 runs. Freshman Tiara Davis struggled on the pitcher's mound, but was able to keep the Sooners scoreless. Davis, Holly Kern, and Ogle all had base hits to tally up 2 more runs, advancing UT's lead to 7-0 after 5 innings. Lindsey Stevens continued her reached base streak when she hit her Big 12 leading 14th home run of the season in the top of the 6th inning. The Horns shut out the Sooners 9-0. However, the Longhorns had a shutout returned right back to them the next day in Norman. The Horns fell to the Sooners 8-0 after 5 innings. Ogle led Texas with a 2-for-2 night but was unable to score. Lindsey Stevens had the only other hit for the Longhorns in the first inning, which helped extend her reached base streak to 46 straight games. With the loss, OU clinched the 3-game Big 12 series, which dropped Texas's record to 27-18 on the season and 7-3 in conference play. Texas softball continues its current 7-game road series on Wednesday night as they head to San Marcos for a battle with Texas State.
Number 20 Texas women's tennis took on number 14 Baylor at home this past Friday. The Horns started off strong in doubles with Brianna Addison and Elizabeth Begley shut down Baylor's Victoria Kiseleva and Jordan Sanford 8-0. Unfortunately, things went a little downhill from there with Ratnika Batra and Nita Kopchina losing the second doubles match 8-6. Then Juliana Jasic and Pippa Horn were defeated by the Bears 8-2. In the singles matches, Brianna Addison, Pippa Horn, and Lena Pajamati all put up wins for Texas, but the Bears would take the final 3 points in a 3rd set tiebreaker and defeat the Longhorns 4-3. Texas will travel to Fort Worth for the Big 12 Tennis Championships this weekend. They earned the 3 seed and will take on 6-seeded TCU on Friday.
When we come back, we're talking golf as they get ready for the Big 12 tournament.
And don't worry, we're not done with football just yet. We'll take a look at other spring football games from around the Big 12. Stay tuned, it's College Press Box. Welcome back to College Press Box. Texas volleyball is off to a great start this preseason. This past Saturday, they traveled to Dallas to play in the Lone Star Classic College Showcase. With a best-out-of-3 format, the Longhorns lost their first set against UTSA, but came back and won the last 2, winning the first match 2-1. Then Texas took on TCU and got the clean sweep, beating the Horned Frogs 2-0. In the last match of the day, Texas went up against Baylor and again got the sweep, beating the Bears 2-0 and sealing a perfect day.
All right, well, this upcoming weekend, the Texas men's golf team heads to Fort Worth for the Big 12 championship.
So how do you think they're going to do, Lauren?
Texas is coming in ranked 3rd behind OU and Oklahoma State. I think it's going to be really tough for Texas. I don't think they will win this year like they did last year, but they will definitely finish top 3. Oklahoma State has always been at the top of the ranks, and Wyndham Clark was just named to the top 10-player United States team for the Palmer Cup last week as a redshirt freshman, so he's definitely someone that Oklahoma State is going to have that Texas needs to watch out for. And OU won the Cowboy Classic at the beginning of the month, which was their 3rd victory of the season. So Texas definitely has some tough competition coming up, and I think it's going to be hard for them.
Well, Texas women's golf will also be playing in the Big 12 championship this weekend. They're coming off their 2nd consecutive top 10 finish after the Ping Arizona State Invitational.
All right, Alex, so what do you think their competition looks like for this weekend?
Well, Texas is going into this tournament ranked just 6th in the Big 12, and that just shows how good this conference really is. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are both having fantastic seasons, but maybe Texas can use that home advantage it is in Austin and do well in the tournament.
All right. Well, as the golf teams look to finish their season strong, other football teams in the Big 12 look to start their season strong in their spring football games. We have Jeff Barker back in the studio again to talk to us a little bit about what's happened in the past couple weeks for other teams around the Big 12 Conference. Welcome back, Jeff.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me back.
Well, the Oklahoma Sooners played their spring game April 12th. Jeff, who are some standout players, and where does OU look the strongest?
Well, I think OU definitely looks the strongest on defense. And I'm going to go to standout players now. Unfortunately for OU, their standout player wasn't somebody that can actually play for them in 2014. It was Baker Mayfield. He was a perfect 9 for 9 passing with 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Trevor Knight, quarterback that led them to a BCS bowl win last year, unfortunately didn't look too good in the spring game. I think he was 5 for 14 passing, but they'll get it together.
All right, and now to the other school in Oklahoma. Oklahoma State held an open practice Saturday in Stillwater. What stood out to you about this game, Jeff?
Yeah, interesting they didn't decide to go with the traditional spring game here. Nothing really to take from this one. I mean, nothing major at least. Clint Shelf led the first team offense. He was 17 of 34 passing, so solid 50% completion percentage there. And then, Wes Lunt and J.W. Walsh led the way for the second team. They split snaps. Nothing really stood out here.
Well, Texas linebacker Steve Edmond was still a little mad about losing to Baylor last season, said he thinks they're trash. So, Jeff, did Baylor look like trash in their spring game, or were things looking good for the Bears?
No, Baylor definitely did not look like trash. Unfortunately for Steve Edmond, things are looking a lot better for Baylor than they are for Texas right now. Baylor's offense is always unbelievable. Art Briles always got that high-powered offense there. Bryce Petty looked good, put up some good stats in the spring game for them. Also, Glasgow Martin and Leach Seastrunk, great performances from them. They combined for over 200 yards on the ground and 4 touchdowns as well. The Baylor first-team defense shined, but I think come August for the regular season, I think that's going to be their weakness again, as it usually is. But they're a team that can definitely win another Big 12 championship like they got their first one in school history last year. So I think they can do it again.
All right, thank you so much for your input, Jeff. Up next, we will tell you what games to look out for this week in Longhorn sports.
And we'll discuss a few former Longhorns that are dominating the NBA, coming up on College Press Box.
Welcome back to College Press Box. As you all know, NBA playoff season is upon us. Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston all made it to the playoffs this year. But let's take a look at how some former Longhorns from Austin are doing this postseason.
Well, LaMarcus Aldridge had an outstanding game on Sunday in an overtime win against the Houston Rockets. He scored a career-high and franchise playoff record 46 points for the Trailblazers and had 18 rebounds and 2 blocks. He was shooting at more than 54% from the field, and his clutch tip-in at the end forced the game into an overtime. Aldridge has put up great performances all season and continues to be one of the best players in the league right now. Portland and Houston will play Game 2 on Wednesday, and we'll see if he keeps up that success this postseason.
On to the next former Longhorn. DJ Augustine has become a powerhouse for the Chicago Bulls offense. Augustine made 10 of 10 free throws to finish his Sunday's loss versus the Wizards. He also had 16 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. His teammates constantly say that he is vital to their offense. Many have said Chicago's postseason will only go as well as Augustine's postseason goes, and it has definitely been that way so far. His accuracy was not quite on par in last night's game, and in the end, the Bulls gave up the win despite a 13-point lead at the beginning of the game. His quickness and penetration are a challenge for the Wizards, and if he can continue to score like Chicago knows he can, the Bulls will have a much better chance at advancing in the playoffs.
And of course, last but certainly not least, Kevin Durant continues to be an MVP contender. Averaging 32 points per game, Durant is the league's scoring champion. In Oklahoma City's first playoff game, he led the Thunder to a 100-86 win over the Memphis Grizzlies, putting up 13 points in just the last quarter. This season, Durant has continuously improved every aspect of his game and led OKC to a great record in this tough Western Conference. His shooting and leadership have put him on top in the MVP race and possibly toward an NBA championship.
All right, well, we talked about some former Longhorns. Now we will tell you who to look out for this week for the current Longhorns. Tuesday, baseball versus UT Pan American will be in Austin at 6 p.m. on Longhorn Network. On Wednesday, softball will be at Texas State at 6 p.m. And Thursday through Saturday, track and field will be at the Penn Relays.
Then on Friday, April 25th, women's tennis will take on TCU in Fort Worth at 3 p.m. Softball versus Oklahoma State at home at 4:30 p.m. And baseball versus Oklahoma State is also going to be at home 7 p.m. Also on Friday, men's tennis was going to start their Big 12 tournament play, but a time and place hasn't been decided yet. Then Friday through Sunday, women's golf plays at the Big 12 Championship. That'll be here in Austin, Texas. And men's golf will play at the Big 12 Championship in Trinity, Texas.
And on Sunday, baseball and softball finish out their series versus Oklahoma State on Saturday. Baseball will start at 1 p.m. on Longhorn Network, and softball will play at 4 p.m. also on Longhorn Network. Then Sunday, baseball will begin at 2 p.m. You can catch that on Longhorn Network again, and softball will be at 11:30 a.m. on Longhorn Network. So, Alex, I know we just talked about what is coming up for this week for the Longhorns, but looking even further toward the fall, who do you think is going to start at the quarterback position for the Longhorns this season?
Well, honestly, I think it's going to be David Ash. As much as I would love to see Gerard Hurd come in this summer and blow us all away and be an awesome quarterback, we all know that David Ash has that experience, that leadership, that an incoming freshman, isn't going to have. And I think that it's going to come down to probably David Ash starting.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for tuning in to College Press Box. You can follow us on Twitter at College Press Box and catch us every Monday night right here on TSTV at 9:30.
And for some of the best sports debate on the 40 acres, tune into College Crossfire Wednesday nights at 9:30. You can follow them on Twitter as well at College Xfire. Thanks to everyone in the studio and in Master Control. And for Reese Miller, Jeff Barker, and Alex Wilkins, I'm Lauren Barish. Good night.
And if they trying to doubt the South, that's fine. We riding dirty at the same time, shine. For all the dope boys pushing on the grind. For all the dope girls keeping them in line.